In this video, I'm going to show you how to transform a shape using rotation. Before I do that, we need to understand a couple of keywords, clockwise and anti-clockwise. They're going to be very useful to us. Clockwise, as the word suggests, means that you're turning a shape in the direction that the hands on a clock would move. So looking at the clock, that's that way. And conversely, anti-clockwise means turning against the hands of a clock or in the opposite direction to the way the hands on a clock move. So that would be in that direction. Okay, here we've got some shapes that have been rotated 90 degrees clockwise, 90 degrees anti-clockwise and 180 degrees. So in the first one, this has been rotated 90 degrees clockwise. This arrow has been rotated 90 degrees anti-clockwise. And here this arrow has been rotated 180 degrees. You can either look at it as being rotated 180 clockwise or 180 anti-clockwise. But you'll get the same image after a rotation of 180 degrees, whether you go clockwise or whether you go anti-clockwise. It's worth mentioning that 90 degrees clockwise is the same as 270 degrees anti-clockwise. Okay, and that 90 degrees anti-clockwise is the same as 270 degrees clockwise. And that's because, if you think about it, we're doing a quarter turn in either direction, which is the same as a 3/4 turn in the opposite direction. Okay, here we've got two examples. Rotate object A 90 degrees clockwise, label the image A1, and then rotate object B 90 degrees clockwise about the point 9,2, label the image B1. So there's not much different about those two instructions. We're rotating shapes that are both rectangles, they're both congruent shapes, so they're both the same shape and the same size. We're rotating both of them 90 degrees and both of them clockwise. So the only difference is that we're using a centre of rotation to rotate object B, and we'll see the difference that that makes. Okay, object A, rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, so that's a quarter turn in the direction of the hands of a clock. And it doesn't say that there's a centre of rotation, so I can really just rotate it and draw it anywhere on the grid. And label it A1. Okay, however, B has to be rotated about the point 9,2. So that's the centre of rotation for B. So if I rotate that 90 degrees clockwise, it goes there. And hopefully you'll notice that it's that centre of rotation that's now holding on to the shape. It's the point around which the rotation is taking place. Okay, everything turned around that as if it was a hinge or a pivot. And then I need to label it B1. Okay, rotate object A 90 degrees clockwise about the point 5,5 and label it A1. So rotating this clockwise 90 degrees is like that. That was a quarter turn clockwise. And then rotate, let's have a look at what it says under here. Rotate object A 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the point 5,5. So I'm using the same centre of rotation, I'm turning it the same number of degrees, but now it's anti-clockwise. So rotate this anti-clockwise would be like that, that's 90 degrees. Label it A2. And then finally it says rotate object A 180 degrees clockwise about the point 5,5. So same centre of rotation, but now we're rotating at 180 degrees. And it doesn't matter if I go clockwise, which would have been that way, or anti-clockwise, which would be this way, I get the same image. But it says clockwise, so I'll do it clockwise, just to show you. Alright, there it is. And label it A3. Okay, so 180 degrees clockwise is the same as 180 anti-clockwise. 90 degrees clockwise is the same as 270 degrees anti-clockwise. and then this is the same as 270 degrees clockwise. Right, next three examples. Rotate object A 90 degrees clockwise about the point 5,4 and label the image A1. So in these examples, what I want to do is to use a centre of rotation that is no longer attached to the shape. I'm going to use these three as centres of rotation. And I'm also going to use three different centres of rotation just to make it clear the difference between where you place the centre of rotation. Okay, so the first one says about the point 5,4, which is over here. Okay, 5,4. Now rotate this shape, object A, 90 degrees clockwise. It's going to end up there. A1. Now rotate the object A 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the point 5,6. Okay, that's there. And it says to rotate it 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Okay, 90 degrees anti-clockwise, that would be this way. So A2 is there. And then finally, it says rotate object A 180 degrees clockwise about the point 9,6. So centre of rotation over here, and rotate it 180 degrees clockwise. That's a quarter turn so far, and that's a full half turn. Okay, it should really line up with the squares if I had the centre of rotation in exactly the right place. A3. Okay, so there we had three different centres of rotation, but also three different directions or degrees to which we were rotating. But the centre of rotation made a key difference. That was the point around which we were doing all the rotating. I want to go back to this example with the triangle and show you how I would do this if I had tracing paper and I was sat at my desk. So here's my piece of tracing paper, and let's just move that. So it's important with your tracing paper, or it's very useful I should say, to have the tracing paper either sort of parallel to the y-axis along the long side of the tracing paper, or parallel to the x-axis. It doesn't really matter. It's not helpful to have it at an angle offset to the axes like that. Okay, it's going to be much more useful to you to have it lined up with the axes. Okay, so let's assume we've done that. We place it over the shape. The next thing to do is to draw an arrow somewhere near the top of the tracing paper pointing to the top. Okay, that's going to show us where we're starting. That's our starting point before rotation. And then trace the shape onto your tracing paper. Okay, and then it says rotate it about the point 5,5. So I place the centre of rotation on 5,5. In reality, what I'd be doing here with a pencil would be holding on to that centre of rotation, pushing down firmly enough so that I'm holding onto the tracing paper, but with enough freedom to be actually able to rotate the tracing paper underneath. Okay, so I'm placing my pencil firmly on the page there, and then rotating 90 degrees clockwise. So you'll notice that when I'm rotating 90 degrees, or rotating now, the arrow on the tracing paper is also moving. And if I'm rotating 90 degrees clockwise, when I finish, the arrow will be pointing to the right, or 3 o'clock, if it was a clock. Okay, and that lets me know when to stop rotating. Without the arrow, I could get lost. With the arrow, I'm much more likely to find where to put the shape. Okay, so it seems that that's where I will need to draw the shape. So what I would do then is to try and memorize, or maybe work out the coordinates of where I'm going to put one of the vertices at the point 1, 2. So I'll move the tracing paper and draw a dot at the point 1, 2. Move this back, put the tracing paper back, so I'll need another corner at 1, 5. 1, 5, which is there, and then put this back, and the last point is at 5, 5. So once I've done that, with a ruler and a pencil, I can join these together somehow. Yeah, like this. There we go. And label it A1. Okay. I can reuse the tracing paper again for the same shape. Okay, let's get that back, put it over the shape, center of rotation, holding on then with the pencil onto the tracing paper, rotate it 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the point 5, 5. So anti-clockwise will be this way, and now the arrow, when I finish, is going to point to the left. Okay, memorize one of the corners. It's at the point, this one, 9, 5. Move the tracing paper out the way, 9, 5. Bring the tracing paper back. Next one is at 9, 8. And then, yeah, the last one again is at 5, 5. So I can join those with a ruler. No, it's not happy about that. And label that B1, A2, I beg your pardon. Okay, last one with this tracing paper on, with this shape. Put it back to how it was. Center of rotation now 180 degrees. Keep rotating. Now the arrow is going to be pointing straight down, so that's not quite it. It's not pointing down. There, now it's in place and the arrow is pointing straight down. Okay, memorize one of the coordinates, or memorize the coordinates of one of the vertices. Let's take this point here at 2, 9. 2, 9. Bring back the tracing paper. Another one will be at 5, 9. 5, 9, and the last one is going to be 5, 5. So join those with a ruler and a pencil, and that's what I've got, A3. Okay, so that's how to use the tracing paper with this example, and I'm going to repeat that with this one. Bring the tracing paper in, rotate it so that it's parallel to the axes. The edges of the paper are parallel to the axes. Place it somewhere over the middle of the shape. Draw an arrow at the top. Trace the shape. Let's choose a different colour. Like so. Okay. And now we can rotate. So the first one, it says the centre of rotation needs to be at the point 5, 4, which is there. And then rotate it clockwise. So when I rotate clockwise, which way is the arrow going to be pointing after 90 degrees? It's going to be pointing to 3 o'clock. Like that. Then I can quickly memorize one of the coordinates. Let's say this one here, 5, 3. Move that out the way, 5, 3, which would be there. Bring that back. Okay, the next one will be 8, 3. And then I think I can probably start filling it in from there. Okay, you can get the shape on. And it should look something like that once I've finished. And I said I need to label it A1. Okay. Get my tracing paper back in, line it up. Okay, and then I've got to rotate it about the point 5,6. So the point 5,6 is there. When I rotate it now anti-clockwise, the arrow is going to be pointing to 9 o'clock. So I'll keep rotating until it's there. I suspect that's meant to be more like there. Okay, and memorize where those coordinates are. I think I've got a pretty good idea that it's something like this. And join those up. And then do the same again with the last one. So bring this back, line it up. Center of rotation is now at the point 9,6. So when I rotate it at 180 degrees, the arrow is going to be pointing straight down at 6 o'clock, and that's where the shape needs to end up, probably more like there. Okay, memorize one of the coordinates, 12,8. 12,8 is there. Bring it back. And another one at 10,7, which is there. Okay, then we've got 11,5 and 12,5. 11,5 and 12,5, and that means that last one must be there, and there's another one there. Okay, you can join these up now. And label it A3. Okay, that's the end of that. There are other videos in the series on transformation, including videos on reflection, translation and enlargement. So if you'd like to watch those, they're online now. Thanks, bye.